laws on behalf of affected property owners nationwide. And this case, which involves Blaine's denial of an accessory dwelling use permit to the Pepins to build an accessory dwelling unit on their own property, is zoning abuse personified. Blaine's ordinances allow for accessory dwelling units to be built, and Alex and Lynda satisfied every single requirement for getting a permit to build one. Even the mayor acknowledged that they were entitled under their own ordinances to allow them to build their ADU, and yet the city council denied them their accessory dwelling use permit, not because of where the ADU was going to go or what it was going to be constructed out of, but because of who it feared was going to live there. But zoning laws must regulate land and land uses and not people. So Alex and Lynda have partnered with the Institute for Justice to challenge Blaine's denial of their permit application. And with that, to hear a little bit more about the specifics of the case and the legal claims, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Matt Lyles. Matt?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Matt Lyles, and I'm an attorney at the Institute for Justice. My name is spelled M-A-T-T-L-I-L-E-S. Today we sued the city of Blaine, challenging its denial of a permit to Alex and Lynda Pepin to build a small backyard home on their property. Alex and Lynda want to help those in need. The way they propose to do that is perfectly safe and legal, yet Blaine refused them anyway. Accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, are small structures that provide additional living space on a property. Backyard homes like ADUs are more affordable. That's exactly why Blaine legalized ADUs just a few years ago, to let property owners build affordable housing in the wake of increased housing costs in Blaine. Alex and Lynda are driven by their faith. They believe in using what they have to help others. For years, they participated in nonprofits that work to reduce homelessness in Minnesota. And the Pepins want their ADU to be a safe haven for a small family that's transitioning out of homelessness. They plan to rent it out at a below-market rate to give a vulnerable family enough time and enough security to find permanent housing. Alex and Lynda spent their own money preparing a permit application that met every single one of Blaine's legal requirements. The mayor himself said that the Pepins were entitled to a permit. So what happened? The Blaine City Council decided to defy its own law. It invoked what it incorrectly described as the intent of its ADU ordinance to arrive at the outcome it wanted in the first place, denying the Pepins their ADU. No one disputed that the Pepins had met every single legal and safety requirement to build. The city of Blaine just does not like who is going to live in the ADU. That's not only wrong, it's unconstitutional. Zoning laws exist to regulate land, not people. Cities don't get to decide who gets to live where solely because they want to fence particular groups out. If you want to use your property in a productive and safe way, the government needs a good reason to stop you. It can't rely on unfounded speculation to take away your property rights. That's why the Pepins have teamed up with the Institute for Justice to defend the right to use your property to help others, not only on their own behalf, but on behalf of property owners across the state of Minnesota. So now we're going to have Alex come speak to you guys.
Thank you, Matt and Ari. I want to first start off by, I am a verbal processor, so I'm going to apologize in advance that sometimes I go wandering and fall off a cliff, and that's about 10% of the time, so I apologize for that in advance. Second, I'd like to thank a few people on the start of this. First off, I'd like to thank Sarah with the Star Tribune. Her article originally brought this out, the issue to out, and then Jason for interviewing it. I just appreciated both of you, coming out and giving voice to the situation, but then also, knowing that I said a lot of things, but you stuck true to what I said. And so I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for that. And that, it was, I think, a great example of just how the press works and reporters and, bringing stories to light. So I wanted to start off by saying thank you for that. The second one, I had a list that is in my head that I forgot. Also to say thank you to Blaine City staff. So the Blaine City staff has been great to work with through this process. They helped us as we were going through the application process. They've been great to deal with through this process. So I'd also just like to thank them in this, that we don't want to, anything that we're doing is not reflective on the city staff, that they've been great to work with. Another person, is that council member Fleming is our council member. She came over during this process and was trying to do some fact finding and stuff like that, which we appreciated that she did that, and rather than just kind of listening to all the things that were going on out there. So those are kind of the people that I wanted to thank throughout this process here. I thought maybe the best way to do this was to explain first of why we're doing it, and then kind of what we're planning on doing. So the why as to why we're doing it. So as Matt had said, that we're, ultimately we feel like our faith is, one of probably the most important thing in our life, and one of the pillars of Christianity. So as Christians, one of the pillars of Christianity is that God did for us through Jesus what we could not do for ourselves. And that's basically then, as living as a Christian, we're called to do that for people in need around us. There's times in people's lives where they just can't do what they need to do. And we would like to do that in this case. So that was what originally kind of brought up the impetus of doing this, was that there's, we have some resources. Blaine has an ordinance that allows this. We also have aging parents, kids that are going to transition. So we just thought, hey, this would be a great way to do a lot of good in an affordable way. So that was kind of the impetus to that, why we chose to do that. And then as far as the plan, kind of like Matt already mentioned, that we're, the plan is to build the ADU and then help families that are coming out of homelessness. So it's not bringing people off the street or anything like that. They've gone through a program typically, and they've been vetted through that. They would go through an interview process with us, and then it would be a family. I guess that's one thing that, I think is important to understand, that it would be a family that would be in there. So typically that's a single, well, not always, but typically a single head of household and a few kiddos. We're only allowed up to 4 people total back there, so it wouldn't be a lot or anything like that. But one of the reasons that we've found over the years in working with people coming out of homelessness and people with housing insecurity is that it's not just about housing, but then also that support that's needed also. So we wanted to offer being the setback's 15 feet, but I think we meet that by 2 feet. So 17 feet away from the family that's going to be in there, it's an automatic support system that would be in place for those families that are in there. So that's one thing. And I think also too, to recognize that we have 3 kids of our own. So like we're very much in favor of making sure that the people that are going to be in there are going to be safe people to be around our kids. And so that's kind of what we're planning on doing is renting it out for that. Also, as I mentioned, we do have aging parents. So there's always a time when we want to be able to take care of our parents if that need arises. And then also with our kids, just with housing costs the way that it is, there's a transition period when they're wanting to get out on their own to have a space for the kids as well. So yeah, those are kind of the reasons. And then and then just the fact that the Institute for Justice. So again, kind of coming back to the original news coverage of all this. This is something that Lynda and I actually had sat down out on the deck at one point in time, and we're like, we feel like this is not right, and it's not. And I think one of the things that we wanted to be careful with, and even talking with the Institute of Justice, is that ultimately we understand the legal claim is our property rights, but we're not trying to do this to make sure that our rights are met. Ultimately, we feel like there's a group of people that are being discriminated against and don't have a voice in this, and that is people that are in need of housing or experiencing homelessness. I think just to kind of be blunt, like a non-PC term is just kind of poor people that are not wanted to be in this area, and we just felt like that's completely wrong. And again, like as our faith dictates, we're called to care for people that don't have that voice, and that if there's an injustice there, God is a God of justice, and he wants to make sure that people are being taken care of in that setting as well. So we really felt just blessed that the Institute of Justice, we were able to get in contact with them. And again, as a result of some of that initial media coverage, where we were able to kind of connect and both work together then towards common goals of helping people to be able to help those in need. So I think that was it. I don't know if I kind of went circuitous on all there. I think I hit my main points. So, but yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that it's come to this point that you've been filing this?
Yeah, that was hard. Like we spent a lot of time working through that, like if there's any other way, because like one, it's super expensive to do that. So that was kind of the original barrier. But just that if there's some way that we can work through this together. So we did reach out to the city and say like, hey, what are the means of appealing? And that got passed on to the city attorney, and we never heard back anything on that. So yeah, we're kind of disappointed that it came to this. And honestly, like again, like we completely understand the neighbors, concerns. Like it's something different. There's like we get that, and we understand that. We feel like there could have been better ways that things would have gone about, but we totally understand like how the neighbors feel. And that's just kind of where our frustration comes about, is we understand the emotions of neighbors, but then where the city council comes in is they're supposed to be kind of above that emotion and just evaluate things based on the ordinance itself. And in this case, they didn't do that. So that's kind of where that frustration comes in. So I'm an environmental engineer, so my job is essentially making sure whatever I do fits within an ordinance. And so like I just I was confused too. It's like, well, why? Like I met all the conditions and everything. Like how is this being? And we didn't really get a clear explanation either as far as like why. We just got kind of a notice that said denied, and like kind of the intent discussion was part of it as well. But yeah, that was a long way to say kind of frustrated. But yeah.
Alex, can you kind of reiterate what you hope to accomplish with this lawsuit here?
So the accomplishment would be to be able to build it. Would be the big thing. But I think two is, to be able to, I don't think this is an isolated incident where the uproar from a community, and again, this is kind of where we're trying to advocate for those people that don't have a voice at this table, where there's people that are in need of affordable housing that are, have a different socioeconomic background, and then people see that this, whatever development is going to be put in is going to bring those people, and we don't want that, and then city councils deny those kinds of applications then. So we also want to be involved, and I think that, where IJ comes in a lot of this is just being a precedent too of like, hey, city councils, ultimately you have to obey your own ordinances and follow through with what you're called to do in these situations. So.
I don't know if this is for you or for one of the attorneys, but can you speak to, I guess it depends how they respond to the lawsuit, but what happens next here?
Yeah.
I think that is more of a legal question.
Yeah, sure. So we are essentially filing an appeal of the Blaine City Council's decision in state court. And so the city's going to have a chance to respond to that. We are going to go through a pretty regular kind of trial court process. We'll eventually have a hearing, and then we'll get to brief and decide. And so the ultimate outcome for us is reversing the Blaine City Council's decision, and we think, we're hopeful that'll happen pretty quickly.
When they denied it, they also then voted to issue a one-year moratorium while they reevaluate the language of the ordinance. How does that affect what you're trying to do?
Right, so it doesn't affect this lawsuit. The law as it exists right now and the law as it existed when the Pepins applied for their permit is Blaine allows ADUs on properties like this as long as you meet a few conditions and requirements. You get the permit, you get to build. So the moratorium itself isn't going to change anything, and we're confident we can get the court to say, under your own law, you're required to let the Pepins do what they want.
So the moratorium wouldn't then delay that, even if it was ruled that they fit the requirements at the time?
That's right.
How did you guys hear about this case?
Yeah, I think we heard about it in the news. It might have been the initial story about it. We're a national law firm, and we pay attention all over the country about zoning abuses and threats to property rights. And so we heard about this case, and we came a couple weeks ago to meet with the Pepins and decided, that they believe in this, they believe in what's going on, and we wanted to back them. So that's why we're here.
Have you seen a case like this before?
I believe this is the first time we've had a case as a firm where the city denied an ADU when the property owners were entitled to build it. We've seen zoning abuse across the country. We've seen zoning abuse in cases where the property owner is trying to use their own property and resources to address a bigger societal problem, like a lack of affordable housing or homelessness. But as far as I remember, this is the only case we've been involved in dealing with just an ADU in someone's backyard.
I have a question for the Pepins. When you worked with city staff, did they give you any indication of how they thought the item would go through, or whether they thought the item would be moved by council, or perhaps any kind of legals in terms of city code that going through it all?
No, and I don't want to speak for them, but just kind of what was presented to the Planning Commission and then the City Council was that the staff recommended approval in both of those instances, so that my interpretation of that is that the city staff saw that it met the requirements and then recommended that for approval to both the Planning Commission and the City Council.
Is there still an amended CUP application pending at City Hall? What's the status of that?
Yeah, so we did, so with that moratorium that came up, so we did find out about that, and we're like, okay, that was, there's a good portion of our application that also dealt with family, aging parents and stuff like that. So we quick got in another application. So that's actually up at the Planning Commission tonight for that part of it. So, yeah, and I don't know how that's going to go, but yeah, that's still.
So did they vote to deny at the same time that they had the proposal for the moratorium?
No, that was a couple weeks later. So they, the way that meeting went was, there was a lot of discussion and intent, and that we were trying to sneak something in. But then, yeah, they kind of said, like, we need to revisit this. And then, like, the next week, they put it on a workshop, or another meeting to do it. So we had like a 2-week window then to be like, what do we do here? That was when I emailed the staff. I was like, how do we appeal this? And they're like, well, we'll let the attorney know. And then the attorney never got back to us. We're like, well, we have like a day to file something before this moratorium kicks in. So that's when then we reapplied with just the family aspect. So we did a reapply, but because of we didn't want to just reapply with the same thing knowing it would get denied again. So we just limited it to family because we don't want to waste the city's time with something. So
You had to reapply before the moratorium started.
correct, yep. Which was in there's about a 2-week turnaround, I think, there. So, which again, like, we really appreciated city staff throughout this process because they explained. They were trying to help, as much as they could through that process of trying to help us as property owners do what they are allowed to do, what the city allows to do.
Have you had one-on-one talks with the neighbors that you know that have raised concerns?
Yeah, I really wouldn't like to get into discussions with the neighbors.
But you have.
Yeah, not as much as we would have liked. There were some initial conversations that did not go well, and then not really any conversations after that. We always kind of wanted to talk, but again, we do understand, like, the neighbors, their concerns and all that, and I just feel like we some things where the process it would have been desired to be a little bit different the last time through, and some of the current stuff too. So, but yeah, I apologize, but yeah, I just don't want to, I don't want to.
Wondered if you had an opportunity to even try to hash it out.
Yeah, no, we've talked, and we even talked somewhat recently, and I don't know if the intent is to hash that out, though. At that point, it's just we were kind of told we were wrong. And so that was about it. It wasn't much of a conversation. But.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
All right, all good? All right, do you want to do one-on-ones? Anyone want to grab an interview with anyone? Or do you want to do B-roll in the backyard? Or what would you
We
guys
need to
like
get some B-roll in the backyard for sure.
All right. Should we do that first?
All right. Have you got so far as actually got like plans?
Yeah, we have architectural plans. Yeah, and I'm an environmental engineer, so I have a survey unit that lay everything out. And,
We'd love to see your plan.
okay, yeah, I can.
We can arrange to email that to you.
Oh, okay.
Or you can, however you want to. So we've got it digitally as well.
Yeah, I have